hello everyone. This is GS Test 1 discussion for Geography section. And yes, most of the students may have given this, let's say, test, and you may have found the kind of questions that we have asked this year. They were like applied in nature largely, although some of them were directly from the syllabus topic, but they tested the untested knowledge or the part that UPSC has not yet asked in the examination. Okay, and in this discussion, we'll have brief discussion because some topics, some questions, some students may not understand how to deal with such kind of question. So I will give you approach here. I will discuss some important concepts also. But let's keep it brief because आपके पास भी बहुत ज़्यादा time नहीं है. Of course, we can understand for watching this discussion also. Okay, so but I will try to ensure that important topics or important points are covered here. So 12 questions were there from the geography section. Remaining part will be discussed by Abhijit sir, society part. So 6 questions, 10 mark, and 6 questions, 15 marks. Let's discuss one by one. The first one is, I will simultaneously tell you the feedback, also how students are making mistakes, what mistakes they are making, and how to overcome them, how to improve upon them. Right. So like for first question, what are the different types of ocean water movements? Question mark. Now the question is having 2 parts clearly, and we have to write in 150 words. Explain forces responsible for those movements, right? So what we have observed is student is writing only one kind of ocean movements, and that is ocean currents. उनको लगता है कि सिर्फ ocean currents ही water movement है. But there is clearly mentioned in the topic in NCERT, ocean water movements. There are 3 types of ocean water movements that are happening there. Waves, second one is tides, and third one is ocean currents. Major ocean water movements are these 3. We can categorize them in these 3. Right. So in that also one should know that waves and ocean currents are horizontal movement of ocean water, and tides is the vertical motion. Now most of the students missed upon this waves especially, and tides also many students, and that's why they did not get to more than 2 or 2.5 marks or more than 3 marks there, even though they have written 150 words. Okay, so yes, what are different types of ocean water movements? अभी यहाँ पे water बोला है, explain भी नहीं बोला है. So what you have to mention is there are 3 types of ocean water movements. These are these: horizontal as well as vertical. If you give specific categorization, that will be more let's say beneficial, and try to explain briefly. Briefly I am saying like waves. So waves are basically the movement of energy, and these are, let's say, transfer of energy from one place to another place, and there is simply a vertical vibration of ocean water movement due to, let's say, forces of prevailing wind and gravity. तो फोर्सेस नहीं लिखे तो भी ठीक है, बट ये 2 लाइन में आपने वेव्स को बता देना चाहिए क्या है, या फिर टाइड्स को आपको बताना चाहिए कि इट इज पीरियडिक मूवमेंट ऑफ ओशन वाटर मूवमेंट, ओशन वाटर, सरफेस ओशन वाटर, वी कैन से दैट. पीरियडिक वर्ड बहुत की टर्म है यहाँ पे जब आप टाइड्स को लिखते हैं, क्योंकि वो पीरियडिक मूवमेंट है. राइट. Then we talk about ocean currents. It is unidirectional movement in a narrow channel over the ocean surface. This is like rivers flowing on the ocean surface. ठीक है, ocean currents. ठीक है. So this much is sufficient in the first part. Now explain the forces responsible. तो explain बोला गया है, तीनों के forces explain कर दो. Okay. If you use flowcharts in the first or second part to just simply mention these forces and explain only 2-3 important, तो भी वो समझ में आ जाएगा कि you know the concept. Okay, for example, if you talk about the waves, 2 forces are there. One is, we can say, prevailing wind. Basically it is dragging. No, this wind is dragging, frictional force. तो वो क्या करता है, ये frictional force, waves direction of the travel, it is saying that basically the prevailing wind will move like this and it will drag that ocean water upward direction, but thereafter under the force of gravity it will fall down. तो क्या हो रहा है, ये crest trough, यानी कि water इस level पे सिर्फ ऐसे move हो रहा है. Water itself is not moving forward. Water itself is not moving forward here. सिंपली ये ऊपर नीचे हो रहा है और एनर्जी ट्रांसफर हो रही है, सिंपली इट इज पुशिंग द वाटर मॉलिक्यूल यहाँ पे लोकेटेड जो है उसको पुश करता है कि ऊपर जाए आगे, ठीक है। तो इस तरीके से आपको वो फोर्सेस समझाने हैं ब्रीफली। Thereafter tides, of course tides, how they are formed due to interaction of three forces: the gravitational force of attraction by the sun and moon, and then there is centrifugal force due to rotation of the earth around its axis. इसका जब forces का interplay होता है तब tides होता है। इतना ही आपको explain करना है। You can draw the diagram also there. Any diagram of neap tide or spring tide जो होता है उसका एक आप कोई भी diagram draw कर दीजिए tides का। Fine. Then ocean currents. There are many, let's say, forces involved here. Like for example, prevailing wind is there. The major forces I am telling you. Then insolation is there. Then along with that, Coriolis force is also there. Coriolis force, you mentioned that the ocean currents are deflected to their right in the northern hemisphere and to their left in the southern hemisphere due to Coriolis force. This is also important one. But there are minor forces also, or secondary forces. इसको primary forces बोलते हैं और secondary forces are also there, like density or salinity is also there. Along with that, the nature of coastline is also there. Give example of Brazilian current there. Nature of coastline. Or there is also, let's say, current related to, we can say, the nature of coast is also affecting the ocean currents that are there in the we can say that Indian Ocean region, especially in northern hemisphere, ठीक है। तो वहां पे coastline के along वो move करते हैं, so that you can mention there, ठीक है। prevailing winds का example आप दे सकते हैं, for example North Atlantic drift under the influence of westerlies, तो आप वो एक example, सबके लिए एक एक example दीजिए, that will enrich your answer, that will enrich your answer. Understood? So fine. So now we have understood this. Then in the end, how to do the write the conclusion part. Introduction और conclusion लिखना बहुत लोगों के लिए एक challenge हो जाता है. But they do not understand that keeping simple intro and conclusion is the best solution here. Like for example, here in this case, what you can mention? Ocean water movement is one of the way or mode of heat redistribution on the Earth's surface. And it influences lot of many weather phenomenon or climate phenomenon observed on the Earth surface. Simple है, significance है ocean water movement का, आपको बताना है conclusion में, right? Fine. So this is first question. Let's talk about the second question. Right. Now this is very specific and demands specific knowledge also. Now many students who are referring to old NCERT, when I say old NCERT, it is not before 10 years. You should know that geography NCERT along with other NCERTs are now being updated. 2022 में geography के NCERTs update हो चुके हैं, and if you see the updated NCERT, you will see all the factors, we can say, or the events that shape the drainage system of Himalayas and Peninsular. Evolution of this drainage system is mentioned there, explained there. So 3 important events in Himalayan system, 3 important events in peninsular system आपको separately बताने चाहिए. Some students have written like combinedly, तो combine नहीं लिखना है, आपको more structured way में इस तरीके से बताना है evolution. Like for example, for Himalayas you can mention Indo-Brahma river or Shivalik river was earlier present during Miocene, or we can say before 30 million years ago. उसके बाद में क्या हो गया? उसके बाद में जो है प्लिस्टोसिन अपहीवल, जिसको हम वर्ड यूज कर सकते हैं, इट इज मेंशन इन एनसीईआरटी, तो कर लीजिए, ठीक है। एंड अपहीवल और अपवर्ड मूवमेंट ऑफ पोटवार प्लेटू और दिल्ली रीच, तो उसकी वजह से क्या हो गया? वाटर डिवाइड इज क्रिएटेड बिटवीन इंदस एंड गंगा एंड ब्रह्मपुत्र. द थर्ड इंपॉर्टेंट इवेंट इज लोअरिंग ऑफ मालदा फॉल्ट, ठीक है। मालदा फॉल्ट क्रिएट होने की वजह से क्या हो गया? वहां पे अभी एक ड्रेनेज बे ऑफ बंगाल की तरफ तैयार हो गया, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट इन गंगा एंड ब्रह्मपुत्र स्टार्टेड ड्रेनिंग इन दैट डायरेक्शन. सो ये इवोल्यूशन है, फाइन. और दीज आर द इंपॉर्टेंट जियोलॉजिकल इवेंट्स वी कैन से इन द पास्ट. पेनिनसुलर ड्रेनेज, यस, subsidence of western flank of peninsula, that resulted into changes in the water divide. Western Ghats now acting as a water divide, and because of that there is changes in the drainage. Second is important one, and that is because of the Indian plate is subducting under the Eurasian plate, and there is, we can say, thrusting phenomenon, and therefore fault. So in these faults, two important rivers were starting flowing, Narmada and we can say Tapi. ये important event है. Thereafter the third important event is, let's say, tilting of peninsula. Tilting of peninsula in which direction? In southeast direction. In southeast direction, and that's why all these rivers started flowing in this direction, northwest to southeast. Northwest to southeast. This is what the present drainage is about. ये events ने present drainage को shape किया. ये सारा आपको बताना चाहिए था. End में conclusion कैसे करना है? Again, bring it to contemporary relevance. Like Himalayan drainage system and peninsular drainage system is having major rivers like Ganga, Godavari, Kaveri, Krishna, which are acting as a lifeline for Indian economy. हो गया, एक impactful conclusion हो गया. ठीक है, इसमें आपको ज्यादा सोचना नहीं है. सिग्निफिकेंस, ज्योग्राफी में कंक्लूजन में आप सिग्निफिकेंस लिखने की बात करनी चाहिए कभी भी, कोई भी फेनोमेनॉन या कोई भी चीज पूछिए तो, right? So you should be writing the significance, and this is going to be most impactful conclusion, one of the most, I would say. Geomorphic processes play very important role in formation of various minerals. Like एक जगह पे आपको आंसर ना मिले, ऐसे क्वेश्चन हम फ्रेम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. पहले दो तो ठीक है, आपको आ जाएंगे, बट नाउ द थर्ड वन इज अप्लाइड इन नेचर. इट इज अप्लाइड इन नेचर. एक जगह पे आपको आंसर नहीं होगा ना, आपको यहां पर क्या करना होगा? यू हैव टू थिंक and apply your knowledge and collate your knowledge at one place. ठीक है, तो geomorphic processes. Now, which are all geomorphic processes that you study? Geomorphic processes ऐसे आप ड्रॉ कर सकते हैं यहाँ पर. ठीक है, और ड्रॉ करने के बाद में आपको yes, so endogenic, exogenic, okay. Now within endogenic you can mention like this. Endogenic, within endogenic what we have is apirogenic, or we can simply say here that diastrophic and catastrophic. Diastrophic and catastrophic. Diastrophic means slow, catastrophic means fast. ठीक है, in diastrophic we can say that it is examples apirogenic, orogenic. Oro means mountain, तो माउंटेन बिल्डिंग वाले ओरोजेनिक होते हैं. एपायरो मीन्स कॉन्टिनेंट, तो कॉन्टिनेंट बिल्डिंग वाले एपायरोजेनिक. जनरली कॉन्टिनेंट बिल्डिंग मूवमेंट्स आर अपवर्ड एंड डाउनवर्ड मूवमेंट. Upward and downward movement. Like for example, upward will be emergence and this will be subsidence. Orogenic will be again horizontal movements. Horizontal will be like tensional, compressional. ठीक है, टेंशनल की वजह से क्या होता है? जनरली हम बोलते हैं कि फोल्ड्स तैयार होता है. कॉम्प्रेशनल, सॉरी नॉट फोल्ड्स, टेंशनल की वजह से फॉल्ट्स तैयार होता है. कॉम्प्रेशनल की वजह से फोल्ड्स तैयार होता है. इस तरीके से आप लिख सकते हैं एंडोजेनिक. ब्रीफली यू कैन मेंशन दिस इन इंट्रोडक्शन इटसेल्फ. व्हाट आर दिस प्रोसेसेस? जियोमॉर्फिक प्रोसेसेस. And yes, geomorphic processes are basically the processes that are happening on the earth's surface from inside the earth as well as from outside the earth, which are shaping the earth's surface. These are shaping the earth's surface continuously in a dynamic manner. Okay, fine. Now we have understood this. Thereafter, what we can talk here after this? Yes. Now, processes and minerals. इनको लिंक करना है हमें आंसर में. बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स ने सिर्फ मिनरल्स के बारे में लिखा है, प्रोसेसेस के बारे में नहीं लिखा है. Let's take example now. This should be let's say explained everything with examples. सारी जो चीजें आपको example के साथ साथ. For example, let's take example of let's say limestone. Limestone is mineral. How limestone is formed? It is a sedimentary rock. We can say it is formed through sedimentary rocks, either through marine or biological or non-biological sediment. So we can say, and when they are compressed, the limestone is formed. Now that compression and biological processes, depositional processes, this is, we can say that exogenic process. Depositional processes, erosional and depositional processes. Exogenic process, we can mention this, and then we can say sedimentary rocks formation is. Limestone is one such example. Other example you can mention coal. Then how coal is formed? Because of sediments are let's say continuously undergoing high temperature and pressure. And over the period of thousands of years, the coal is formed. Endogenic processes. पहले exogenic हो गया, deposition हो गया, उसके बाद में endogenic processes है. That's example. Then placer deposits you can mention like gold. Placer deposits. How placer deposits are formed? From one place, basically the withering and erosion is happening, and they are deposited at other place continuously. Then we can say placer deposits of gold. ठीक है. Example you can give this. So you basically there is continuously erosion and deposition process is going on. Now, most of the minerals, metallic minerals, you take the example like iron or cobalt, or we can say that copper, all these, how they are extracted, we can say. So simply there is enrichment process is going on. Enrichment process is what? Enrichment process is withering of rocks. Withering of rocks. NCERT में एक छोटा सा box देके explain किया है enrichment process. Basically there is large rocks, let's say. In that large rocks, lot of minerals are there. But many minerals are dissolvable in the water. The withering is happening and they are washed off. And certain minerals which are not dissolvable, they are remaining in a concentrated form. This enrichment, and this is how iron and copper minerals are extracted from the large ores. ठीक है, ये एक example. Then you can give example of like monazite sands. Monazite में जो है thorium reserves है. Basically ये क्या है? ये waves depositional feature है. Sand जो है coastal sand deposition से हो रहा है. Right, sand itself is a mineral. तो sand जो है कैसे हो रहा है? Erosion and deposition phenomenon से हो रहा है. All these examples, mineral examples you should give, and through example only answer should be written. In the end, you bring the significance. Again, minerals are very important for economic growth of any country, and India is endowed with a lot, we can say huge amount of mineral resources, and we can say that these minerals play a very important role in development of any country. इस तरीके से आप उसको conclude कर दीजिए. ठीक है? India has substantial reserves of coal bed methane, but there are several issues involved in the exploration and extraction of these reserves. यहाँ पे एक आपको पता होना चाहिए कि coal bed methane, as the name suggests, the coal bed methane is associated with the coal reserves or coal seams in any country. Basically, this methane gas is, let's say, present in that coal seams under pressure. And once the pressure is released, that gas first releases from that seam, and then the coal is extracted. One should know this. Okay, so yes, we have substantial resources. ये आपको map draw करना चाहिए था. Coal reserves का areas बताना चाहिए था. वहाँ पे हमारे पास substantial coal bed methane reserves है. उसका आपको एक potential भी आपको एक data उसमें लिखेंगे तो बहुत अच्छा होगा कि कितना potential है हमारे पास reserves है. And thereafter the problems in extraction. ठीक है. There are several issues involved in the extraction and exploration. So keep on writing those exploration issues, like for example, we don't have appropriate technology. ठीक है? We don't have appropriate technology. Then thereafter you should know that there are always concerns related to, we can say that, environmental concerns. It is methane is, let's say, escaping into the atmosphere, that is becoming problem. Thereafter we can give an example ये टेक्नोलॉजी का हो गया। उसके बाद में हम कोल बेड मिथेन का प्रॉब्लम, और हम बता सकते हैं फॉर एग्जांपल व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन वी वांट टू एक्सट्रैक्ट सीबीएम, द प्रॉब्लम लाइज विथ वी कैन से ओनरशिप आल्सो। Like suppose the CBM exploration company is different, it is allocated to the different company, and coal exploration same area में exploration, तो conflict होता है ownership का वहाँ पे। ये भी आप example में लिख सकते हैं। Basically we have given in model answer all these issues, you can read that, and simply we have to understand that coal bed methane in India, despite of let's say its reserves, we are not able to explore because of these issues. But coal bed methane is important, we can say it is comparatively cleaner fuel ना, ठीक है, comparatively cleaner compared to coal or crude oil also। तो वो जो है आप अलग अलग जगह पे applications, तो end में क्या करना है, इसका applications लिख देना है conclusion में, and it can reduce the much dirtier fuel use, that is coal। या फिर हमारे एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है, ऐसे लिख देना। एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी वर्ड है, बार बार यूज करना है, जहां पे भी हमें बात कर रहा है कि एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी, एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी जोड़ देना है। फाइन, ओके। Describing the distribution of coffee production in India, indicate the this is how UPSC framed some question last year. Describing the distribution of rubber producing countries, indicate the major environmental factor or issues we can say related to rubber producing countries। ऐसा था ना क्वेश्चन। So we have asked this coffee production क्योंकि टी प्रोडक्शन हो गया है, बाकी इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें क्रॉप्स की पूछ लिया है उन्होंने, कॉटन का पूछा है, शुगर केन का पूछा हुआ है अब तक, तो वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग कॉफी इंडस्ट्री ऑल्सो। नाउ वी नो दैट कर्नाटका इज द लीडिंग प्रोड्यूसर, यू कैन ड्रॉ दिस मैप, ठीक है। मैप डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ रिसोर्सेस एंड इंडस्ट्रीज के लोकेशन के लिए मैप जरूरी है। इट्स लाइक वैल्यू एडिशन इन योर आंसर। इफ यू डू नॉट ड्रॉ मैप, you may not get more than average marks in your answers of geography. So map drawing is very important. Karnataka is the leading producer, around 70% of the coffee production happens in, we can say that, you can see here Karnataka maximum production, then Kerala and Tamil Nadu. These are traditional coffee producing areas, but non-traditional, let's say, states are also now competing with them. For example, we have Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, these two, northeast में Assam भी है, अरुणाचल प्रदेश भी है। So yes, these are, then the factors determining location, standard है, आपको तैयारी करके रखनी है। Climate is there, so moderate climate and the rainfall distribution is uniform throughout the year। Second is that slope factors, ठीक है, moderate slope is required, and shade very important for it। शेडिंग ऑफ लार्ज ट्रीज, शेड ट्रीज जो है जरूरी होता है वहां पर, क्योंकि इरोजन नहीं होना चाहिए सॉइल का। देन थर्ड इज वी कैन से लोमी सॉइल्स, एंड अलोंग विद दैट वेल ड्रेन्ड लोमी सॉइल्स। वेल ड्रेन मतलब वहां पे कोई भी ड्रेनेज का प्रॉब्लम ना हो, यहाँ पे डैम्पी प्लेसेस पे टी और कॉफी कल्टीवेशन नहीं होता है, प्रॉब्लम होता है। देन ये सारा ज्योग्राफिकल फैक्टर, फिजिकल फैक्टर्स पहले बता देना है। Slope in India, we can say north and eastern slopes of Western Ghats, they are considered suitable because they protect these let's say coffee plantations from extreme heat as well as let's say excess rainfall during the southwest monsoon। Then skilled labor is there, ये सारे बाद में लिखने हैं। Skilled, semi-skilled labor is required, along with that capital intensive है, capital supply is required, then market is there। ये सारे फैक्टर्स लिखने हैं, 6-7 इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर्स लिखिए, that's all, that is sufficient, fine। but most important ones, these physical ones, वो पहले लिखना चाहिए आंसर में। what we have found, students are not focusing on that, ठीक है। bring out the global distribution of earthquakes, and what do you understand by strike slip earthquake that happened in Syria, Turkey, Syria। ऐसे टाइप का क्वेश्चन आपको जरूर आ सकता है। अर्थक्वेक एक रह गया है पूछना आपको, जो हमारा सिलेबस टॉपिक है नेचुरल हजार्ड्स वाला। ओके, सो यस, ग्लोबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, व्हाई वी आस्क दिस, बिकॉज बेसिक्स ऑफ अर्थक्वेक यू आर अवेयर अबाउट दैट, यू विल बी एबल टू राइट इट, उससे रिलेटेड हमने पूछा नहीं इसलिए। ग्लोबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैन बी आस्क्ड बिकॉज दिस इज वन इंपॉर्टेंट, यू कैन डिवाइड इट इनटू 4 पार्ट्स। One is, we can say that ring of fire, Pacific ring of fire, or we can say Pacific rim. 80% of global earthquakes are concentrated here only. Then there is alpine belt. Then third, there is, we can say that mid-oceanic ridge region. And fourth, we can say that it is, let's say, African rift region, intraplate, African rift, and other faults within plates. ऐसे आपको बताना है यहाँ पर. Okay, so yes, you can mention that in ring of fire or Pacific rim, you can mention that the Pacific plate is subducting under the various plates, heavier plates. Heavier plate, Pacific plate is subducting under the lighter plate like Eurasian plate or North American and South American plate, and it is convergence happening there, and that's why it is tectonically most active region. In alpine belt, you can mention that continent convergence is happening. Here ocean and continent convergence is happening, or ocean convergence like Pacific Islands, that region, Japan and that region, ocean convergence. Mid-oceanic ridge, it is divergent plate boundary and they are the shallow focus earthquake. यहाँ पे जो है deep focus earthquake हो गई, एक लाइन में लिखी है सिर्फ वहाँ पे. Then African rift, it is basically again divergent forces within the plate that are happening there. Okay, so these things you can mention in the global distribution. What do you understand by strike slip earthquake? Strike slip earthquake में क्या होता है? ये देखिए यहाँ पर डायग्राम में भी आपको दिखाई देगा. Okay, so strike slip earthquake में जो है दो plates या दो rocks जो है along the fault, they are moving in the transform boundary, along the transform boundary, or moving in the tangential direction, not upward downward, rather it is moving in a tangential direction. This is what happened in that region of Turkey. Look at this, Turkey Syria, ठीक है. तो जो दो earthquake हुए थे इस location में हुए थे दो. You can see that East Anatolian fault line is there, or that particular location, and Eurasian plate and the African plate on the southern side. The East Anatolian fault, that region is basically the fault region along which this strike slip movement happened. ये आपको बताना था वहाँ पर strike slip में, ठीक है? Fine. So now we have understood this, so it is sufficient. Explain the concept of plate tectonics. Now we are moving towards 15 marks, and we expect that the depth as well as the coverage in these type of question. 250 words are sufficient to check your depth of understanding and the coverage. Like, explain the concept of plate tectonics. You start with the plate tectonics. This theory is given by Morgan Mackenzie, and we can understand that यहाँ पे plate को define करना है. Plates are lithospheric slabs freely floating over the liquid asthenosphere, and there are major plates and minor plates covering a whole of the lithosphere, and they are moving because of two important forces. Major force is the convection current. Okay, convection currents, and they are basically along that direction they are moving, these plates, and interacting, and there is interaction forming different three types of boundaries there. Convergent, divergent, and transform. ठीक है? And then you go on explaining briefly all these three, especially convergent ones: ocean convergence, continent convergence, and we can say ocean continent convergence. इतना आपने कितने words में लिखना चाहिए? 150 words में. Thereafter, how does it help explaining formation of Himalayas? Remaining 100 words को आपको उसको देना है. इस तरीके से आप डिवाइड करिए स्ट्रक्चरिंग में, या हाफ भी कर सकते हैं. नाउ एक्सप्लेनिंग formation of Himalayas. Again, you can go on explaining that how before 60 million years ago, our Indian plate or Indo-Australian plate started moving towards Eurasian plate. It crossed the equator over the period of time and started being the heavier plate, oceanic plate. It started subducting under the Eurasian plate, and there was folding of sediments of geosyncline that was formed due to tethys sea there, and this resulted into folding of these sediments, and this is how during tertiary time period we can say from a sudden we can say movement of Indian plate towards the Eurasian plate. During that sudden movement, one fold was formed. Then after that time there was recess. Thereafter again sudden movement was the, therefore folding happened. So this is how the parallel ranges of fold mountains of Himalayas were formed. And till the date the Indo-Australian plate is still subducting, and that's why the height of Himalayas is still increasing and this region is tectonically still active. बस यही चीज आपको बतानी थी. तो हाइट वाला एंगल कंक्लूजन में ला दीजिए, दैट इज सफिशिएंट, और टेक्टोनिकली एक्टिव वाला जो एंगल है वो ला दीजिए वहां पर एंड में. सो दिस इज सफिशिएंट फॉर दिस क्वेश्चन हियर. ठीक है, फाइन. ये सारी चीजें हमने मॉडल आंसर में डायग्राम्स के साथ में ऐड कर दी है. ठीक है, फाइन. नाउ critical minerals are vital for modern technology. The advent of electric vehicles have driven them to top geopolitical agenda. Why we are asking this question? Because ये है, news में भी है, and this year's prelims question. Remember cobalt they asked. Cobalt क्यों पूछा उन्होंने? क्योंकि वो critical mineral है. Why we say that critical minerals? These minerals are essential for economic growth of the country nowadays, especially for greener, let's say, growth, economic growth that we want, and that's why they are important. But their supply is, we can say, limited, and we can say it is very vulnerable to external shocks, geopolitical, let's say, because of geopolitical developments. For example, during COVID time, we have seen that kind of disruption, or due to Ukraine-Russia war, now we can see the disruption. That's why the critical minerals, the name. So yes, first question is this one only. What are critical minerals? You define this definition and thereafter give examples. Examples you can give lithium, cobalt, strontium, okay, then beryllium. ये सारे एग्जांपल्स आप मेंशन कर सकते हैं यहाँ पर. नाउ डिस्क्राइब द ग्लोबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ दिस मिनरल्स. ग्लोबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के लिए आपको मैप ड्रॉ करना चाहिए. 2-3 भी आप अगर लोकेशन ठीक से बताते हैं तो दैट इज सफिशिएंट. लाइक विच कंट्रीज आर हैव? डेमोक्रेटिक रिपब्लिक ऑफ कॉन्गो, 70% ऑफ कोबाल्ट. ऑस्ट्रेलिया इज वन ऑफ द लीडिंग, लेट्स से country, we can say reserves are lithium and zirconium. Then let's say South Africa, we have chromium, main तो chromium हम बोल सकते हैं वहाँ पे. USA में क्या है सबसे ज़्यादा? बेरिलियम है, तो उससे रिलेटेड आप US को बोल सकते हैं. Then in Spain we have strontium. So then in Argentina what we have largely it is, we can say, lithium. तो lithium triangle बोलते हैं ना इसको हम. Chile, Bolivia and Argentina. Sorry, this one, not this one. This one, lithium triangle बोला जाता है. So majority, more than 50% of the world's lithium resources are there in that region. Okay, so this one can be mentioned there. And then the most important, we can say China. China के पास सारे ही almost, देखिए, vanadium is there, molybdenum is there, then tungsten, graphite, everything is there. Most of the, let's say, critical minerals are there in China. And that's why we are concerned here, because the world is dependent on China for these resources. And any kind of geopolitical development threatens the supply of these resources to the world countries. तो इसलिए ये हम बोल सकते हैं कि important. Thereafter, what the third part is the challenges involved in their exploration and utilization. तो challenges क्या है? First thing is that their location. Underdeveloped countries, underdeveloped countries है. For example, you can mention South American and African countries. So they don't have technology and capital. ठीक है, तो ये वाला second point आ सकता है. Third point you can mention is geopolitical tensions. Give example of the Ukraine-Russia war. Threatens supply chain, global supply chains. Fourth thing you can mention is that many of these critical minerals are found in the let's say deep sea nodules, जिसको हम बोलते हैं manganese nodules. Cobalt उसमें भी होता है, manganese nodules में manganese होता है. Basically it is at present such kind of exploration is we can say highly cost intensive. This is also one of the challenge. Then what you can mention is the location में आप ये भी चीज बताइए कि एक ही कंट्री में बहुत ज्यादा रिसोर्सेस है, सो दिस एक्चुअली थ्रेटन्स द सप्लाई. समझो कोबाल्ट का, एक गिव एग्जांपल ऑफ कोबाल्ट इटसेल्फ, ठीक है. 70% ऑफ द वर्ल्ड्स कोबाल्ट रिसोर्सेस कहाँ पर है? डेमोक्रेटिक रिपब्लिक ऑफ कॉन्गो. अब वहां पे समझो क्या है, सिविल वॉर चल रहा है समझो फॉर एग्जांपल. दिस थ्रेटन्स द सप्लाई ऑफ कोबाल्ट टू वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज. इट इज चैलेंज हाउ टू सिक्योर द सप्लाई. ये सारे चैलेंजेस आपको मेंशन करने हैं. एंड में आपने वे फॉरवर्ड में या कंक्लूजन में क्या बताना है? द ग्लोबल लेट्स से पार्टनरशिप लाइक मिनरल सिक्योरिटी पार्टनरशिप. अभी हमने कवर किया था करंट अफेयर्स के लेक्चर्स में DTRS में. मिनरल सिक्योरिटी पार्टनरशिप इज US led initiative. India is not part of it yet, but this is to secure global supply chains of critical minerals. India US is collaborating for supply of critical minerals, that is ICET. क्या है ये ICET? I small CET capital. It is initiative on let's say critical and emerging technologies. तो इसमें critical minerals भी आता है, ठीक है. So all these things you should be aware. Fine? Okay. Let's talk about the next question. Yes, discuss the prospects, challenges and implications. See, the question itself has structuring. स्ट्रक्चरिंग जो होता है आंसर का क्वेश्चन में ही छुपा होता है, उसको ठीक से फॉलो करना है आंसर में. प्रोस्पेक्ट्स पहला पार्ट है, सेकंड पार्ट इज चैलेंजेस एंड थर्ड पार्ट इज इम्प्लीकेशंस. ऐसे ही स्ट्रक्चरिंग करना है. इंट्रो के बाद प्रोस्पेक्ट्स लिखना है. प्रोस्पेक्ट्स में यू कैन मेंशन दैट हिमालयन स्टेट्स, वी कैन से दैट द स्टिफ स्लोप, देन पेरेनियल रिवर्स, then we can say that demand for electricity, fourth cleaner fuel होता है, electricity होता है, hydro, it is renewable energy. तो prospects है, we want that, right? Then there are challenges में क्या क्या है हम बोल सकते हैं. there are let's say challenges because this region is tectonically active. There are always concerns of let's say challenges related to environment, ठीक है. environment clearances challenge है. land acquisition is challenge. how to deal with the let's say local people opposition to these projects, ठीक है. So these are all challenges you can mention. Implications में दोनों लिखने हैं, पॉजिटिव एंड नेगेटिव. बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स ने पॉजिटिव लिखना मिस किया है. Implications can be or impacts can be, consequences can be positive as well as negative. You mentioned them. So positive में क्या लिखना है? Yes, of course it will promote economic growth. How? Because power is available, then it will promote industries in that region. एम्प्लॉयमेंट होगा, प्रॉस्पेरिटी होगा, इम्प्रूवमेंट इन सोशियो इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर्स ऑफ द पीपल, पॉजिटिव ग्रोथ. नेगेटिव यू कैन मेंशन फर्स्ट एनवायरमेंटल एस्पेक्ट्स, submergence, then deforestation happens, then displacement of eco flow वाला एंगल लाइए, ठीक है. obstruction to the natural flow of river, then riverine ecology is affected. Then you mention social angle, displacement of the people living in that region, loss of livelihood to the people, cultural let's say things are also we can simply say that there is loss of culture and identity because they are displaced from their local places. तो ये सारी चीजें वहाँ पे आती है. Okay. Thereafter you can also mention about the negative impact in terms of like hazards, floods can be there, we can say dams can be, let's say due to tectonic activity there can be earthquake, and because of that always threat of, we can say, dams getting bursted and downflow, flooding of downstream areas. Thereafter you can also mention about subsidence. You give example of this Joshimath, Tapovan Vishnugad project, hydroelectricity project. So it is being blamed, no, Tapovan Vishnugad project is being blamed there कि जो subsidence हो रहा है लैंड, ये सारा नेगेटिव implications में आपके बहुत सारा फॉर्डर है आपको लिखने के लिए। तेहरी डैम का एग्जांपल, टेक्टोनिकली एक्टिव रीजन में तेहरी में पहले भी अर्थक्वेक हुआ है और तेहरी डैम कैन बी बर्स्ट बिकॉज ऑफ एक्सेस अर्थक्वेक देयर, तो ज़्यादा मैग्नीट्यूड का अर्थक्वेक हो गया तो फाइन। आई गेस नाउ दिस इज सफिशिएंट हियर। ओके, describing the distribution of raw material required for atomic energy indicate the major challenges associated with the nuclear energy production. ठीक है, बेसिक्स आपको पता है। इफ यू टॉक अबाउट द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, कजाकिस्तान एंड कनाडा, वन ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट रिसोर्सेज ऑफ यूरेनियम, रिजर्व्स ऑफ यूरेनियम। टॉकिंग अबाउट थोरियम, इंडिया, यूएसएस एंड कनाडा, उसमें भी बहुत ज़्यादा रिसोर्सेज है। ठीक है, तो कनाडा, कजाकिस्तान, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, 50% ऑफ द वर्ल्ड यूरेनियम रिसोर्सेज आर देयर इन दीज 3 कंट्रीज। तो ये आप ड्रॉ करके मैप पे दिखाइए। इंडिया में मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द रिसोर्सेज ऑफ यूरेनियम आर इन झारखंड, जादूगुड़ा माइंस आर ऑल्सो देयर। ठीक है, झारखंड सिंहभूम डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो है वहां पर है। देन इन छत्तीसगढ़, लेट्स से दुर्ग डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऑफ छत्तीसगढ़, यूरेनियम डिपॉजिट्स आर देयर। ओके, देन इन आनंदपुर डिस्ट्रिक्ट एंड तुमुलपल्ले डिस्ट्रिक्ट रीजन ऑफ आंध्र प्रदेश, देयर यू हैव यूरेनियम डिपॉजिट्स। ठीक है, तो ये मेंशन करना है, बेसिक चीज है। देन the thorium reserves are there along the sands, especially in Kerala, you can mention that. Okay, so fine. Thereafter you can mention about the challenges. क्या है सेकंड पार्ट क्वेश्चन का? मेजर चैलेंजेस। ठीक है, तो क्या है चैलेंजेस में आप बताएंगे? मेजर चैलेंजेस में, yes, so in challenges you can mention about first concern related to technology. Okay, so technology, some countries are having it, some countries are not having it. How to build the reactor, how to let's say have that. Then along with that, technology related to thorium, how to utilize thorium. That is again we can say it is prototype. Let's say fast breeder reactor. Breeder reactors are being built. हमारा जो 3 स्टेज प्रोग्राम है, न्यूक्लियर प्रोग्राम, उसमें 3rd स्टेज में हम थोरियम यूज करने वाले हैं। तो एट प्रेजेंट वी हैव अचीव्ड, we can say that first stage only and second stage पे हम मूव कर रहे हैं अभी। Second important aspect is related to safety of power plants. Then third one we can say that related to demonstrations and people are protesting, people's protest, कुडम है, जैतापुर है, तो वो एक चीज है। Then safety से related past के example, चेरनोबिल एक्सीडेंट, फुकुशिमा, दाइची जापान एक्सीडेंट, ये सारा एग्जांपल दीजिए। देन अदर चैलेंजेस, लैंड एक्विजिशन, जैतापुर एग्जांपल दीजिए। दिस इज वन चैलेंज है। देन चैलेंजेस रिलेटेड टू फ्यूल, लिमिटेड है एंड इंपोर्ट्स नहीं कर पाते हैं क्योंकि इंटरनेशनल कोऑपरेशन नहीं हो रहा है ठीक से। सिविल न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी डील विद दिस कंट्रीज, ऑल्दो वी हैव साइंड विथ Australia, USA and Kazakhstan also, but we are not, let's say, getting the fuels from that NSG wala nuclear supplier group. We are not member of this and many countries oppose India because we are let's say country which are not part of NSG and we are also having nuclear warheads. ये सारी चीजें आपको challenges में बोलना है। Geopolitical challenges. Fine? Okay, this much is sufficient. But you can mention in the end conclusion that nuclear energy is clean fuel, although there are, let's say, safety concerns. But if in future the let's say micro or reactors, or we can say that those reactors which can be fabricated at the industrial level and can be utilized at a micro level, at local level, तो वो एक नया revolution ला सकता है use of nuclear energy. Now, drought is no longer mere scarcity or absence of rainfall, but related to inefficient water resource management. ठीक है, no longer मतलब पहले था तो ये बता देना है आपको। Insufficient rainfall variability, this relate to drought. पहले तो drought को define करिए। Then you can mention 3 types of droughts also: agriculture drought, meteorological drought, hydrological drought. ठीक है. एग्रीकल्चर मतलब sufficient amount of soil moisture is available. Meteorological is related to rainfall, and hydrological is related to amount of water that is available in the water bodies. इससे related. Now, the important aspect is inefficient water resource management, यानी कि यहाँ पे human factors आता है. क्या क्या है? Excess exploitation of groundwater, then pollution of water bodies, rivers, let's say wetlands, rivers, or we can also say that the lakes, all these are getting polluted, तो वो use नहीं कर पा रहे हम पानी को. Third is we can say that changes in hydrological cycle due to global warming, climate change, global warming. ठीक है. Increased temperatures will lead to increased evaporation. There can be precipitation somewhere else. तो वहाँ इंडिया में droughts आ सकते हैं. Variability in rainfall is increasing because of that. So all these can be mentioned. Then we can say that weak implementation, poor implementation of rainwater harvesting. Then we can mention deforestation. जिसकी वजह से क्या होता है? रन ऑफ ज़्यादा होता है. वाटर इज नॉट गेटिंग इनटू ग्राउंड वाटर. ठीक है. ग्राउंड वाटर रिचार्ज नहीं हो रहा है. ये सारे फैक्टर्स आपको बताना है इनएफिशिएंट वाटर रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट. ठीक है. फॉल्टी इरिगेशन प्रैक्टिसेस यू मेंशन. फ्लड इरिगेशन, जैसे एग्रीकल्चर में सबसे ज़्यादा जो है प्रॉब्लम फ्लड इरिगेशन. एक्सेस वाटर इज यूज्ड. वाटर थर्स्टी क्रॉप्स यू कैन मेंशन. वाटर थर्स्टी क्रॉप्स लाइक sugarcane, water thirsty crop. ठीक है. So all these are basically the factors. Thereafter, analyze the social, economic and environmental impacts if drought, ठीक है, and suggest suitable measures for mitigation. Suggest suitable measures for mitigation. ठीक है. So यहाँ पर आपको अभी social, यहाँ पे structuring इसी तरीके से करना है. दो पॉइंट लिखने हैं. सोशल फैक्टर्स, इकोनॉमिक फैक्टर्स एंड एनवायरमेंटल फैक्टर इम्पैक्ट्स. ठीक है. सोशल में क्या होगा? सबसे ज़्यादा विमेन पे इम्पैक्ट होगा. विमेन हैव टू गो लॉन्गर डिस्टेंसेस. हम देखते हैं रूरल एरियाज में विमेन आर हैविंग दिस रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, ऑल्दो इट इज़ वेरी रूड प्रैक्टिस वी कैन से. तो विमेन पे इम्पैक्ट होगा, उनके हेल्थ पे इम्पैक्ट होगा. देन सैनिटेशन से रिलेटेड इम्पैक्ट, देन इट विल लीड टू डिसीजेस. देयर कैन बी डिस्प्लेसमेंट ऑफ पीपल फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अदर प्लेस बिकॉज ऑफ लैक ऑफ स्कैरसिटी ऑफ वाटर. ये सोशल अनरेस्ट होगा वहाँ पर. देन इकोनॉमिक वाला एंगल आता है. ठीक है. तो इकोनॉमिक में क्या होगा? यहाँ पे जो है वहाँ पे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स भी हो सकते हैं, सोशल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स बिकॉज ऑफ लैक ऑफ अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ वाटर. इकोनॉमिक, यस, रिड्यूस एग्रीकल्चर ग्रोथ. वाटर ही नहीं है तो क्या होगा? देयर आफ्टर द प्रॉब्लम्स रिलेटेड टू ड्रिंकिंग वाटर सप्लाई इन अर्बन एरियाज. इंडस्ट्रियल यूज, ये सारी चीजें. देन वाटर विल नॉट बी अवेलेबल इन द हाइड्रो प्रोजेक्ट्स, हाइड्रो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी प्रोजेक्ट, तो वो पावर प्रोडक्शन कम हो जाएगा. एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट, ऑफ कोर्स एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट में हम क्या बोलेंगे कि वहां पर बायोडायवर्सिटी कम हो जाएगी क्योंकि क्रॉप ग्रोथ या फिर नॉर्मल ग्रोथ के लिए भी पानी नहीं है. तो देन वी कैन से दैट एनिमल्स डाई ड्यू टू स्कैरसिटी ऑफ वाटर. तो इससे भी बायोडायवर्सिटी कम हो जाएगा, एनिमल्स डाई. देन फूड चेन पे इम्पैक्ट करेगा. तो एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट्स में ये सारा इम्पैक्ट बताना है हमें. ठीक है. हाइड्रोलॉजिकल चेंजेस में चेंज हो रहा है तो सारा इम्पैक्ट करेगा उस चीज पे. फाइन. देयर आफ्टर सजेस्ट सुटेबल मेजर्स. सुटेबल मेजर्स में इनोवेटिव मेजर्स लिखने चाहिए आपने. वही घिसे पिटे रिपीटेड चीजें नहीं बोलनी चाहिए. क्या इनोवेटिव मेजर्स आप बोल सकते हैं सजेस्ट मेजर्स में? efficient वाटर रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट के सारे प्रैक्टिसेस आपको बताने चाहिए वहाँ पर. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल यू कैन मेंशन अबाउट मियावाकी मेथड. अभी जो फॉरेस्ट वाला है, अर्बन फॉरेस्ट में ये मेंशन करना है इनोवेटिव वाली चीज. ठीक है. यूपीएससी खुद पूछ रहा है ना प्री में. ठीक है. देन वी कैन मेंशन दैट कंपल्सरी रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग स्ट्रक्चर इन अर्बन एरियाज. रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग स्ट्रक्चर इन अर्बन एरियाज, इट शुड बी let's say if it is not there it should be penalized. तो ये सारा compulsion होना चाहिए. Thereafter we can also mention about let's say water efficient irrigation practices, like we can talk about the drip irrigation and sprinkler. Then you can mention about the, let's say, agroclimatically suitable crops. ठीक है, water thirsty crops नहीं होने चाहिए arid and semi arid region में. Then we can say that watershed management practices. ऐसे terms use करने हमें आंसर में. Watershed management practices. So yes, these can be methodologies to mitigate. Then जो traditional water, उसको traditional water bodies जो है उनको rejuvenate करना चाहिए. प्रधानमंत्री कृषि सिंचाई योजना को मेंशन करिए. इसके one of the component is this one, प्रधानमंत्री कृषि सिंचाई योजना. It is related to this only, watershed management, traditional water bodies. इनको ठीक है, fine. So these can be mentioned there in this question. And the last question is critically evaluate the impact of shrinking lakes of the world due to climate change and human. तो एक आपको सिलेबस टॉपिक है चेंजेस इन द लैंडफॉर्म्स और बॉडीज. ठीक है, तो उससे रिलेटेड ये क्वेश्चन हमने पूछा है. देयर वाज दिस स्टडी विच सेइंग दैट ओवर हाफ ऑफ द वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट लेक्स हैव श्रंक ड्यू टू क्लाइमेट चेंज एंड ह्यूमन एक्टिविटीज. रीसेंट स्टडी है, इसलिए ये आपको रिलेवेंट है. लेक्स से रिलेटेड आपको आ सकता है इस तरीके से क्वेश्चन. Already they have asked about global warming, changes that are happening in the glaciers, melting of glaciers and all these things. We can expect such things related to lakes. ठीक है, तो क्या होगा यहाँ पर? Critically evaluate the impact of shrinking lakes of the world due to climate change. पहले तो आप बताइए कि ये lakes कैसे कम हो रहे, shrink हो रहे due to climate change and human activities. ठीक है, human activities like what we are doing, we are actually obstructing the flow of natural water, let's say rivers. Along with that, what we are doing, we are extracting the water from the lakes in excess manner. We are polluting these lakes. Global warming in climate change, because of that more evaporation is happening, and because of that lakes are getting dry. Give some examples, like Aral Sea का example दीजिए आप, या फिर आप example दीजिए Lake Fuguba in itself. pre में जो question आया था last to last year. Okay, so you can give such examples. Now talking about the implications, evaluate the implications. उन्होंने बोला है consequences बोला हुआ है. So of course there will be some negative consequences, आपको बताने हैं वहाँ पर. ठीक है, what will be the impact on water resource availability. Second, conflicts between different countries. ये इंडिया को लिमिटेड नहीं है. ठीक है, तो जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल लेक चाड, ऑलरेडी दीज कंट्रीज आर फाइटिंग विथ ईच अदर. इन अफ्रीका लेक चाड इज, वी कैन से, श्रिंकिंग, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट वेरी स्केर्स रिसोर्स वाटर एज इन दैट रीजन. कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स होंगे, सिविल वॉर होंगे उसकी वजह से. देन देयर कैन बी लेट्स से कंसर्न्स रिलेटेड टू ओवरऑल अगेन हाइड्रोलॉजिकल साइकिल is getting affected. Fourth, you can mention related to, of course, तो आप वहाँ पे ये भी बताइए ना कि रिक्रिएशनल के लिए भी, एक्टिविटी के लिए भी काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट था, इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज़ के लिए. लेक्स जो होता है, दे आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर रिक्रिएशनल एक्टिविटीज़. लाइक इन इंडिया ऑल दिस लेक्स, दाल लेक, वुलर लेक, जो भी हम लेक्स देखते हैं वहाँ पे रिक्रिएशनल एक्टिविटीज़ होते हैं. So yes, economic activities are also impacted because of that. Then what you can mention for the major, तो यही है, सारे यही बताने हैं उसमें एक्चुअली. ठीक है, सेकंड पार्ट में, फर्स्ट पार्ट में आप बताइए कि वो कैसे श्रिंक हो रहा है, और सेकंड पार्ट में इसी के साथ एग्जांपल देके सेकंड पार्ट में ये सारा चीज बताना है. फाइन. So yes, we are providing you model answers of all these questions. Within 1 or 2 days you will receive this model answers also. And yes, society section will be discussed by yes अभिजीत सर. ठीक है, तो अभिजीत सर सेकंड पार्ट जो आपके 8 क्वेश्चंस है वो डिस्कस करेंगे. Now related to your copies, if you have any doubts related to that, you arrange for a mentoring session. ठीक है, आप ऑनलाइन आपके पोर्टल के थ्रू भी अरेंज कर सकते हैं, आप यहाँ पे कॉल कर सकते हैं फ्रंट ऑफिस में एंड यू कैन गेट द मेंटरिंग सेशन अरेंज रिगार्डिंग इवैल्यूएटेड कॉपी। ठीक है, तो उससे क्या होगा कि स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन से रिलेटेड, आपके आंसर से रिलेटेड आई कैन डिस्कस विथ यू डायरेक्टली। फाइन, ओके देन।
Good evening everyone. So today we will start with what would be another year for GS Mains test series. Now, after the evaluation of some paper, I have realized that there is some fundamental and foundational error in the overall approach to answers. For example, most of the students are not attempting the introduction in a right way. See, if it is urbanization, then you don't have to define urbanization. If it is urbanization and its impact on the culture, then that should be the part of your introduction on which line you will proceed. So let's make it very clear that how we are supposed to approach the question is the first thing. In this context, we will subsequently and eventually analyze the paper, but these are general things which I want to talk about today, which is, while attempting the questions, follow the tail word, so the keyword of the question, always follow it. It will help you in scoring 1 or 2 marks every question. So if it is investigate, then you have to sow all the seeds and you have to give specific incidences based on that narrative, which will help you in understanding what is the investigation. Assess, then you have to be evaluative in your approach, that you have to rate the positive and the negative part as well. So, if there's a point of difference, then what is the focus of the difference? That should be your main logic. So these are the things based on which we will eventually try to approach the paper. Now, starting with the question number 7, which is, analyze how increasing urbanization is impacting the cultural identity of rural migrants in India. So we know about this question that yes, there is urbanization, people are migrating, there is a loss of language, there is loss of traditions, there is loss of identity, so everything is there. But you see that why this question has been asked, we have to understand that. Now, what has been in the news? So, if we will try to analyze that what is the news, then we will understand that there are 2 parts to it. One, that there is an attitude crystallization or the identity crystallization in urban areas as compared to rural areas. Caste is a strong phenomena at the rural area, but we cannot say so definitely in the urban areas. In urban areas, it is the religion which is the stronger phenomena. So, what is that and how it is happening? So, we have to understand that. Okay. Now, the first part, and analyze how increasing urbanization is impacting the cultural identity. Now, what should be the introduction? That India is witnessing a significant transformation from rural to urban areas, which is changing all the aspect, nearly all the aspect of the life. Now, you don't have to define urban areas in it. We don't have to identify the definition of urban as per the population census. We don't have to do anything like that. Straight away, we have to paraphrase or rephrase the question with some supplementary data so that introduction can be written. This is the first focus of the introduction. Now, how impacting the cultural identity? So this we have to write at 2 levels. The first level will be that how there is a Just wait a minute. Let me see the question first. How there is the loss of culture, loss of language, loss of tradition in the urban areas of the rural migrant because of its melting ball culture. The global cities, particularly where the peoples are migrating like Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, so they have their own culture. After a significant while, nearly all the cultures become same. They generally try to mimic the dominant culture out there, and in this domination, most of the parts, see, about from clothing to anything changes. So this, yes, this is similarly language change. Similarly, world view, that with the view with a particular citizen or a particular migrant see the world. Say for example, he can be adamant on the position that he don't want his wife to or females in his house to work in the urban or rural areas. But in urban areas, because of the expectancy issues, both are working. So the worldview is also changing. So this can be one side of the argument. The other side of the, you can always refer to the model answers in this case. The other side of the argument in this case can be that, you know, that how this changes is impacting the rural area through social remittance itself. So the gap that was there due to urban and rural areas is changing. We must, you know, we have heard about the phenomena of the social remittance, that people who returns from urban area to rural area will not work under the same condition in which they used to work previously. And that's how caste is weakening even in the rural area. So these are the worldviews they are definitely getting from that particular part. So this is how there is a change in the overall worldview. So at the same time, we also talk about that there is a crystallization of attitude. We also know that caste work as a state identity group or a pressure group even in the urban areas. We also know that the, you know, the intensity or the magnitude of urbanization has arisen out of compulsion rather than it is an organic area or organic urbanization. Because of that, there are significant areas of peri-urban areas where there is the issue of low urbanization and low acceptance of culture. That's why there is the coexistence of traditional identity along with the identity that is already there. That's why see caste conflict even in case of urban areas. You can quote the examples which happened in Gujarat, Mehsana district, where some Dalits were flogged because of some issues out there, or even in the, you know, Noida, where there's a Dalit violence or anything like that. We can always quote that. So you have to create a balance that yes, it is changing, no, it is, and this the identities are still solid due to lack of organic urbanizations. Moving to the next question in this regard is that how population policies, POPSI, assess the influence of populist politics on democratic fabric of India. Now, here is the problem. The problem is, in the most of the answer I evaluated till now, there is always the negative side of the populism. Don't you think that there should be some positive sides too? After all, the groups like Muslim Yadav combination or not Muslim Yadav combination, the emergence of backward caste politics is because of populist tendencies, because of the populistic leader. So you see that, you know, populism also inculcates social equity, social equality, fairness in the case of justice, and welfare nationalism. So see, we can discuss what can be the consequences of welfare nationalism at a later stage. But in the early stage, we see that, welfare nationalism is beneficial. We can go on, discussing, not in this paper particularly, that, there can be the consequences of MG Narega. But that is not the reality. MG Narega is helping people in the short term. At least it is giving them dignity. So this is also because of the populistic tendencies based on which economic nationalism, welfare nationalism, justice, democratization, PRI movement in itself is a great example of the benefits of the populistic leadership. So this is how you will see negative part. We all know that there is a fragmentation of the social elite, there is a negative consequences, particularly related to the majoritarianism. There is an erosion of social trust, there is a threat to freedom, and such other issues are there. But you see, largely the issue focused upon the negative, most of the students focused upon the negative part rather than focusing on all of the aspect of the question. Now, those people who are writing the exam for the second thing must know that there is a significant change, particularly related to the standards in the questions. Last year it used to be very tough. Now we try to follow the pattern of the UPSC as much, contemporizing the nature of the question. That's why you see probably some of the students find difficulty, because when we come for the society paper, we generally don't come from this mindset. So that's why this is how the nature of the paper is designed. Moving to the next question, which is, analyze the influence of Western feminism on the women's rights movement in India. Now let me tell you why we have discussed the nature of the question. Last year, most of the question in society section was from the sociology paper itself. They just, left the name of the thinkers and they quoted it, and they just, wrote it in that way. So that's why I took this question, though you will see that there is some semblance of the optional in this case, but you have to write it generally. Analyze the influence of Western feminism on the women's rights movement in India. You see that this is a question which can be answered from the Dalit feminism. Not Dalit feminism, different stages of feminism in case of India. So Western feminism, what we understand by it, that the complete focus is upon equality and dignity and respect for all. Now, in case of India, if we talk about the feminist movement, most of the movement that happened during the phase of independence or before independence was largely not feminist movement per se. But for the classificatory purpose, if we want to classify it, then we can say that yes, that largely this movement was not related with the equality fairness, rather it was related with the independence. There are incidences of Dandi March and such other movements where the women played a significant role. Now, after the independence, there are various movements. You see that, how you are using all of the knowledge of the women's movement in this question. All the movements, including Chipko, Apiko, Sharabandi movement in Maharashtra, they were not directly related to the question of women, but yes, it was related with the respect for women. So again, you see that Western feminism is not playing that important role, which is completely focusing upon the aspect of the equality. So here again, it is not focusing upon that part. Now, there was another feminist movement led by Seva. In this, the focus was upon empowerment again. Seva, and we can talk about the Mathura rape case or PCP and DT Act, where the question of the woman was directly related. In this question, there was demand for the equality. So, since the late 70s, the notion of Western feminism started configuring in Indian women's movement. This rose further in the aftermath of globalization. You know, there was Dalit feminist movement, there was Kali magazine. So they focused upon the complete equality, even going as far as to question the, the whole process of procreation, because they thought that, they alleged that it generally serves the woman, relegates the woman to in a lesser position. Further, now you can talk about the Pinjara Tod movement and such other movement where the focus is upon complete equality, from Sabarimala, Shani Sanctums, Haji Ali, everywhere. And this also case, Triple Talaq, UCC. UCC was there, which was a question that was raised by AWD in 1929 itself. So they also, in the initial period of the women's movement in India, they tried to raise the question on the feminist also, but largely later part was not related with the feminist movement. So this is now. So the impact, now the focus is upon equality. The governmental say about this, probably why we are raising this question is because of the Domestic Violence Act, okay, Marital Rape Case Act. So all these notions are largely driven by the Western feminism, notion of complete equality. So this is how we wanted you to understand this question in generality. We don't have to define what is Western feminist movement. Okay. Rather, we have to compare every aspect of the such movement. You can talk about the women's suffrage movement because there was no, that about the women's suffrage, gender equality of the workplace, empowerment of women, awareness of sexual and reproductive rights. So such other aspect of the part related to. Now, the last question in the 10 marker section is, discuss the effect of digital literacy campaign on bridging the urban-rural divide in the context of India. So we can talk about PMG. These are different campaigns which are named, okay, and different examples are given in the model answer. But what is point of interest here is that we will also like that largely this gap is bridging in the aspect of the material culture only. This is important to understand. Material culture means people are watching the Instagram reels, they are earning the money and such other part. But largely no significant change is witnessed in the case of values. Digital divide, the values at urban area are different. The values at the rural areas are different. So in this case, we can talk about westernization or incomplete modernity. That yes, significant changes are there. Yes, the impediments are there. But you see that changes are not there in proportionate to the changes in the value. I don't know that you know the concept of cultural lag or not, but see, the cultural lag is, the material culture changes faster. Material culture means dressing style or consumerist culture. These culture changes significantly when compared to the immaterial culture or non-material culture. In this case, the values. In this case, the values and such other. So, you see that proportionate changes are not there in the values. People are still not, going in the sense of values. The important thing which we have to understand in this section of the society is that even with the general nature of the question, we have to include or assert or insert the societal aspect of that question. This is very important to understand. So this is how you will approach this question. Now moving towards the end of the sections, which is subsequently significantly higher and contains more marks, is assess the impact of India's current environmental policies on tribal communities living in forested region and propose way to balance environmental protection with the right and livelihood of these communities. Now, you see that there is a very important thing. The thing is, last year there was a question that, that in case of so much variation, diversity among the tribals, how we identify that who a particular person, who a tribe is. So this was the question last year. Now here, I believe that you will be able to write, and the model answer in this case is comprehensively written also. So most of the things you will be able to write. But what is the most important point? That any of the environmental policies on tribal living in forested region is creating a twofold impact. Either they are migrating, even when they are living at the rural space, there is a frequent visit of the tourist in different areas. So there is a development of the class in the tribal sections. Those people who have migrated, even when they are forcefully migrated, even when they forcefully migrated from that area, there is a development of the class. And as far as we know that egalitarianism is one of the most important characteristic of the tribal movement. So you see that the whole structure of the tribal society is changing because of this. This is one of the most important things, and nobody has addressed it. How to write any answer in its sociological sense, that is one of the most important thing which we have to discuss. Okay, so that is one of the most important thing that we need to discuss, is that how the societally there is a change in case of tribal communities living in forest and the development of the class. That how in order to retain them there is an increased commercialization, how the the overall thing, how the overall changes are there. So these are the things which we have to address in this question. Now, the next question is, investigate the role of social media platform in amplifying communal tension in India. See, again, largely the focus was on sensationalism of the news, faking news. So we know that these are the mechanisms we always know. So, but we can write. But what are the main important components of this? That you see that there is a important component of anonymity. That there is no behavior modulation. You can write whatever you want to write. And when you are not in front of any man, you cannot modulate your behavior because you are at your, barbaric self. So when you're at barbaric self, you can write anything you want. And you see the subsequent answer, selfie. Oh, sorry, that blue tick of the Twitter, verified account. So that is somehow relates with some kind of behavior modulation that anyone can be traced because of this. So this is one part of the problem, another part. Now, attitude crystallization. Attitude crystallization is what? That, when you are there, in case of just we will come just to this point later. You see, like, eventually you will understand it, that there was as such not caste consciousness in the Dalits before the advent of internet. Now this has increased after post the advent of internet or proliferation of the internet, or particularly social media. Why it is so? It is so because initially significant number of the people, particularly from the untouchable section, particularly from the Dalit community, never identified with their surnames. And there was no homogenization in case of Dalit. We always know that the people of Dalit of Maharashtra considered themselves different from the Dalit of Uttar Pradesh. So there was no unanimity on the definition of Dalit. There was an identity which was the identity of the oppressed, but there was no unanimity in the case of identity. So now, after the proliferation of the social media, people who initially used to write with anonymous account are now showing their caste, because they are finding that there is some synchronicity, or somebody is appreciating their view at some different corners of India. So this gave them a rise. They gave the rise to their ideas and identity, though gave them self-esteem. Now this self-esteem really helped them in crystallization of attitude. So this crystallization of attitude is related with the assertion by the Dalit. Another factor because of which we see frequent communal tension. And at the same point, it also helps people in getting radicalized. Because maybe once or twice in somebody's life, he feels some kind of deprivation, then it is very hard to be radicalized. And largely because of this radicalization, we heard here that there are incidences of terrorism. So you see that this attitude crystallization because of the social media, suasion, persuasion, moral suasion, persuasion, okay, all these factors contributes to the socially, psychologically and economically disadvantage or weakened section to come there and start, by the mediums of fake news, deep fakes, such other issues, riot starts. Further, algorithm, that there is no algorithm. The algorithm of these meta companies particularly shows you the tweets or the videos which you want to see, or which you have seen maybe once or twice. So again, this shapes your attitude. This shapes your desire, and you will get lost into it after a while. So this is how the different parts of this is being shaped by the different identities. Now, you can't always read the model answers. There are different models, like the models of the Germany is given, models of other countries are given, where what should be the way forward to control it. So this is how we will deal with this particular question. Now question number 19. The growth of digital payment system and online banking has a profound impact on Indian economy. Discuss the possible implications of this shift from the financial inclusion with a particular focus on rural and marginalized community. You see that direct beneficial transfer, everything will come in this answer. But at the same time, you have to write the negatives also, that there are increased incidences of cyber fraud and such other, which is creating problem for the rural and marginalized communities. You see empowerment of women, lower transaction cost, formalization of the informalized sector, the increased sales for the businessmen of the artisan classes. So every point will come. There are examples also, Flipkart, Amazon venturing into the Assam, or directly dealing with the customers, or the artisans out there. So there's a lot of things to be written, selling your product to outside India. But I believe that most of the people haven't written about the negative implications. and the mover's advantage. That this tendency is also helping in the rise of the middlemen across India because of the digital divide. Okay, so you see that, largely if we see that on the surface of this, the questions are very generic, but as has been asked in the society section, then what are the societal angle which has to be answered or introduced? That was not done properly. I hope that, it will improve significantly in the model answers, last test. Now, again, this was one of the simplest questions. As India seeks to become a global power, it faces a multitude of internal and external challenges. Again, the focus should be on the societal aspect, education, health, geopolitical issues, internal security, related to the radicalization of the people, Naxalism, CSE movement, migration. So these are the social issues which we have to address. We are not going or venturing in. Why should we write about the international relation in this aspect? We have to focus upon the aspect which is strictly related with the sociology, so not society. So this is how you will approach the question. Why we are writing about the international relation in this question? Okay. So these are some of the problematic areas which I have found in the different questions till now. So on that note, largely I have taken the discussion of the class, summarized discussion of the class. We are always available for your convenience. In case of any doubt, in case of any issues related with the, that why the structures are not, why this marks have been awarded, you can always approach the Lukmaan IAS and, taking the appointment, you can always come for the mentorship. And we will try to resolve your problem as much as it can be done, so that ultimately our goal is that you can score, so that our results will come. हम भी photo खिंचाएंगे भाई आपके साथ में. So that is the whole motto of the coaching and the institutions. So this is probably as much as we can do in improving your answers on all different aspects of it, we will do it. So if you still finding any difficulty, particularly related to the model answers or the discussions or the point which you haven't understood or the evaluation, come for the mentorship. On that note, I will say bye. Thanks. Thank you.